Hey everyone, so is your dryer flashing that dreaded E2 or F2 error code? And are you just totally over the laundry guessing game? Well, you've come to the right place. We're going to break down exactly what that code means and, more importantly, how you can probably fix it yourself in like the next 5 minutes. Seriously, no repair person needed. Does this sound familiar? You toss in a load on the automatic cycle, you come back later expecting perfectly dry clothes, but instead you pull out a pile that's either still kind of damp or totally baked to a crisp. It is so frustrating, right? And it's a huge sign that your dryer's automatic sensors are basically offline. Yep, that little code blinking on the screen, E2, F2, whatever it is, that's the bad guy here. But I've got some really good news for you. You almost certainly do not need to call a repair person. The solution is often incredibly easy and, best of all, costs next to nothing. So, what is actually happening inside your dryer? Well, that error code points to a moisture sensor fault. See, inside your dryer drum, there are these two little metal bars. As your wet clothes tumble around, they touch both bars at the same time, which completes a circuit. This tells the dryer's brain, the control board, exactly how much moisture is left. But when this error pops up, that connection is broken. Your dryer is basically flying blind, which is why it can't run its automatic cycles properly. All right, let's get right to the fix. We are starting with the number one most common solution, the one that for the vast majority of you watching is going to solve this whole problem in less than 5 minutes. That's right, about 70% of the time, this one simple action that we're about to walk through is all it takes to fix this problem. It is absolutely the first thing you should always try. Now, here's the crazy part. The problem usually isn't some broken, complicated component. It's just buildup. Over time, those metal sensor bars get coated with this super thin, totally invisible film of residue from your fabric softener and dryer sheets. This waxy film basically acts like a tiny raincoat, and it stops the sensors from actually touching your wet clothes and getting an accurate reading. So, how do we fix it? Simple. We just clean them. It's 4 easy steps. First, and you cannot skip this, unplug the dryer from the wall for safety. Second, open the door and find the two metal strips inside the drum. They're usually right near the lint filter. Third, grab a cloth or a cotton ball, put some rubbing alcohol on it, and just scrub those bars until they're nice and shiny again. And finally, plug it back in, throw in a couple damp towels, and run a test load on an automatic or sensor site. And this right here is what we're going for. We want to go from the dull, coated sensors on the left, which can't do their job, to the bright, shiny, bare metal on the right. That clean surface is what lets the sensor actually feel the moisture and get your dryer working like new again. Just a couple of quick pro tips to make sure you do this right. Rubbing alcohol is definitely your best friend for this job. You want to avoid water because that could cause some electrical issues. And please, please stay away from anything abrasive like a scouring pad. You can easily scratch the sensors, which could damage them permanently. A gentle scrub is really all you need. Okay, so what if you're in that other 30%? What if cleaning didn't solve the problem? Don't worry, you're not out of luck. The next steps just involve checking the hardware itself, and they're just as straightforward. Right, if you've cleaned those sensors really well and you're still getting that error, it is time for a quick visual check. All you're doing is looking for any obvious signs of physical damage that cleaning just wouldn't fix. Here's your little checklist. First, look closely at the sensor bars themselves. Are there any deep scratches, any rust, or maybe some burn marks? Next, try to trace the wires coming off the sensors. Look for any spots where they might be pinched, cut, or look discolored. And finally, make sure a stray coin or a bobby pin hasn't gotten stuck between the bars, because that can cause a short circuit. Okay, so you've cleaned them, you've inspected them, and you're still getting that pesky error. If you happen to have a multimeter and you're comfortable using one, the next test is actually really simple, and it'll tell you for sure if the sensor is working electrically. So here's the two-step test. With the dryer still unplugged, of course, you're going to touch your multimeter probes to the two wires connected to the sensor. First, with the bars totally dry, your meter should show an open circuit. That's usually displayed as OL. That just means there's no connection. Now, for part two, place a wet cloth so it's touching both sensor bars inside the drum. The reading on your meter should suddenly change and show some resistance. That means a connection has been made. If that reading doesn't change at all when you put the wet cloth on, well, you've just confirmed the sensor itself has failed. So by now, you should have a really good idea of what's going on with your dryer. Let's break down the potential costs and help you decide if this is something you want to do yourself or if it's maybe time to call in a pro. So the costs here can really vary. As we've seen, cleaning is basically free. If you find out the sensor bars themselves are damaged, a new replacement part is usually somewhere in that $30 to $60 range. A wiring issue is often even cheaper to fix. The only truly expensive scenario is a busted control board. But hey, the good news is that's also the least likely cause of this error. And just to put it into perspective for you, a DIY fix for almost all of these common issues is going to cost you somewhere between $0 and $60. Hiring a professional to do the exact same job, that's likely going to start around $150 and just go up from there. So yeah, the savings from doing it yourself can be pretty huge. Now that your dryer is up and running again, let's talk about how to make sure this problem never, ever happens again. A little bit of preventative maintenance really does go a long way. Here is your simple prevention checklist. About once a month, just give those sensor bars a quick wipe with some rubbing alcohol. To really cut down on that residue buildup, think about switching from dryer sheets to wool dryer balls. And of course, the basics always apply. Clean out that lint filter after every single load and give the inside of the drum a quick wipe down every now and then. But you know, the biggest long-term fix, the number one thing you can do for prevention is this. Stop using the stuff that causes that residue in the first place. If you can ditch the liquid fabric softeners and the dryer sheets, you will dramatically reduce the chances of this error ever coming back. So let's just recap the key takeaway here. That super frustrating E2 or F2 error code is almost always a really simple, really inexpensive problem that you can totally diagnose and fix all by yourself. It feels pretty good knowing you don't have to immediately pick up the phone and call for help, right? By following these steps, you haven't just saved yourself time and money, you've also learned a little more about how your appliances actually work. Which really just leaves one question. Who needs a repair tech now?